And welcome to the Around the Maritime podcast, the official English language podcast of the Quebec Maritime Junior Hockey League. Mavs Gillis, Jeremy Boucher. Jeremy, how are you, buddy? It's playoff season, and we're on to the second round.
We are alive and well. It's been a pretty exciting time, and there's some nail biting games in to close out the first round, and some to get going in the second round. So you can't really complain about the QMJHL right now. It's living up to the expectations.
There was some series that were the runaways that everyone kind of saw the writing on the wall there. There was some series that have, you know, caused a lot of heartache and disappointment. And there's one series that I know everybody and their dog was able to predict the outcome of a series that we'll talk to in a second. Let's first talk about our teams that are not in contention anymore. First off, the Sea Dogs were out for a bit there, but a shout out to Travis Crickert getting the call to be the an associate coach with the U18 national program, as well. Cameron Chandra getting a shot up there too. So good to see there. And again, that's a Sea Dog team that's getting themselves ready for the draft.
Yeah, 100%. It was nice to see Travis Kirkwood name there. Not obviously not going to be his first experience, with Team Canada. So he's got that. He's bringing the experience already. And yeah, you mentioned Cam Chartrand, and we'll talk about Bathurst here in a little bit. But their video coach Matthew Smith, also representing Team Canada at the under 18. So not only does when you're eliminated a little early, it definitely stings a little bit. But there's other opportunities out there to make sure your season goes on.
Now, of course, Travis getting another rep with Hockey Canada, and you talk about Matthew Smith and the Acadie Bathurst team. Hey, the league didn't waste any time whatsoever because we were looking on the site today, and already it is the Newfoundland Regiment. The logo is up on that spot where it was Acadie Bathurst T10. I think that was just a quick update, and away they went. The final game-winning goal in Acadie Bathurst T10 history. Who was it, Jeremy?
Oh, you're making me go back a week or two, but I believe it's Alexandre Lallier.
He scored the last goal, the last game winner, Dawson Sharkey.
Oh, you tricked
Yes,
me on that.
very close. Very close. Yes, the last game winner. But yeah, the T10 are no more. It is now the regiment, and now the questions become who's going to Newfoundland and
Mm-hmm.
who's on their way. I'm going to tell you. I know this is the English podcast, and maybe there's some uh, players that have reservations about going to Newfoundland. Let me tell you this right now. You want to be a part of the Newfoundland Regiment if you have that opportunity, because it is going to be an absolute wild time in the Mary Brown Center.
Yeah, you know what? That would be it's on my bucket list of rinks to go visit. I've never been to Newfoundland at all, so to be able to go there and catch a hockey game and see the sights and the sounds. And I mean, have you seen their season ticket sales? Like
Uh,
those, impressive. Like
yeah,
really off to a good start here. So they've got something going. They've got something good going on here, and they got to keep at it. I think their ownership group is really focused on not only the on ice product but the off ice product. It's going to be a fun atmosphere over there in St. John's there starting next season.
yeah, you certainly want to be part of it, and I know that Newfoundlanders that are around the league right now, um, they're going to be, their names are going to be start getting floated around for opportunities to go back home and play, which kind of leads us to the Islanders. Marcus Kiersey and the Islanders, they get swept by the Oceanic, and I know, hey, it was again a tough out for the Charlottetown Islanders getting matched up against the team that's hosting the Memorial Cup. And once again, it is four and done for the Jim Holton led Charlottetown Islanders. But there's a lot of promise there for that team moving forward. And if there's, I know we got Richard Tibo coming on for our guest today. He's the assistant general manager of the Chicoutimi Saguenay. Uh, for me, I think this is going to be a very, very intriguing offseason for free agent signings, especially the 18-year-olds and the 19-year-olds that were locked into their deals over this course of the season in the USHL, the NAHL, and around junior A hockey that had that aspiration of playing NCAA. There's going to be a lot of kids that are now available on the market to come to play major junior hockey. And Jim Holton is always a guy that's got his finger on the pulse for bringing in talent and getting the most out of them. And they have a nice core coming back. This really could re-jump that Islander franchise.
Yeah, it really could. Obviously the NCAA changes. It's any team that's rebuilding. It's not a rebuild anymore. It's a retool. These teams can flip the script really quickly, and I expect Charlottetown to do the same. They're obviously losing Nick Gruccia, but don't count out Donald Hickey, who had a spectacular season. As a rookie, and he's most definitely their goalie of the future. And they've got some bright spots on D, and bright spots up front. Jude Heron, came over to Charlottetown because of the NCAA changes, and the Q had that New England showcase over the weekend down in Massachusetts, and Jude Heron was a guest speaker at the showcase, right? So talking about how great of a product we have up here, and to make the market more attractive for American born players. So that's to have him as a guest speaker. It's just going to make Charlottetown that much more attractive, and the league in general.
Yeah, you talk about Jude Heron. There's no better guy to go down there. Young kid who
Mm-hmm.
had a lot of success as a 16-year-old in this league, and I know this. He was thrown right into the deep end. There was plenty of times where he was getting top line minutes this year with the Islanders due to injuries, but he thrived there, and a great personality. And he's someone that this Islanders hockey ops, but also the front office can build around. Uh, and plus, I'm going to give a shout out to Juicebox Hockey as well, because his videos from when he was a young, well, he's still young, when he was a little bit younger, uh, they're tremendous. I'll say that Juicebox Hockey videos are great. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jude Heron. I will admit that here on that podcast, and I'm not afraid to say it. But him and his brother did some good work doing some vlogging. So to have him as representative of this league down there, they couldn't have picked a better guy.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's not going to stop. It's too bad they got rid of the American draft, because it would be the perfect time to bring it back. Just to be able to have more opportunities to select, a New England kid. It's really going to make a difference. It already is. So you see in like some of these teams that are still around, these players who left the BCHL are having big impacts on their teams right now, and it's only going to change. It's going to be the first off season with this change, so it's going to be interesting to see who goes where, and who's making the big splashes at the draft, because you saw there's 4 New England kids that got named to the U.S. National Development Program, who could be first round picks in the Q draft because they're that talented, right? So it's going to be interesting if a team or 2 or 3 or 4 takes a swing at these guys, and to try to persuade them to come up north rather than go play for the development program down there.
Now, again, we talk about that, and it's a very fluid situation right now. I know that I think Frank Severali tweeted out this week about how that the USA Hockey, USHL, and I believe even the National are doing their best to really strengthen the relationship there to ensure that American kids have opportunities to play junior hockey in the States, and that option is more viable. But it's a it's an intriguing time to be following this league, especially after what happened in Sudbury this past week, where the Flames draft pick, his name's escaped me right now. I can bring it up on my phone, and I
Henry Muse.
apologize. Beautiful, thank you. That's what
Yeah.
Jeremy, you got me. He,
Hey, whenever Flames fan, you know your draft picks.
hey, the Wolves spent an absolute fortune to get him.
Yeah.
They got him for 30 games, and now he's saying, "I'm going from the big nickel to the big house. I'm going to be playing in Michigan this year, next year." That, like, again, He's a 19-year-old that's elected to transfer down to play in the NCAA.
Hmm.
That is kind of that's shaking the foundation a bit of junior hockey. But again, it's all these new developments, it's all the ebbs and flows, and it's going to be curious to see what happens there. I'm going to be asking Richie about that. Let's talk about 19-year-olds in the 19 situation, and let's talk about a bit of disappointment in Cape Breton as they go down in 5 to Baie-Comeau. Um, that was a team that, and I know you might like, that was a team that a lot of people looked at this year as a team that was going on a run as well. In the Eagles organization, thought this was the year that they were making a shake at it. They were making a run at it after the going to the conference finals last year. This did not happen for Cape Breton. A lot of people talked about how the Eastern Conference this year was an absolute meat grinder, and that was something that Cape Breton did get caught in, that meat grinder. But there was plenty of points where were left on the table from the Eagles this season in the regular for them not to able to have home ice advantage or find themselves in 5 taking on that a very tough Baie-Comeau team there. Cape Breton got their playoff. Um, they got their playoff moment, winning a 5 overtime game. Lucas Romeo finding the back of the net at 1:17 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time. To give you perspective, our close personal friend Patrick McNeil told us a story about there was a scout at the Eagles Baie-Comeau game who left after the third period. When that scout was checking in to their hotel room in Halifax that night, they heard the final call of that game. So you could take into perspective how that's a very good perspective of how long the overtime session was in Cape Breton. Yes, that's the bright spot of the overtime, but I know that there was a lot of miscontent amongst the Eagle faithful to see where they're going. A statement put out by the Eagles just earlier today, Sylvain Couturier talking about how they're going to be a younger team, but they've got 3 U18 MVPs in the pipeline coming up this year. It's the first time he's seen that in 25 years. But they are going to be, they do have a plethora of 19-year-olds that they could be stealing at the draft. What happens there, and again with the NCAA shakeouts, what that market's like is going to be very intriguing. But I guess the long and short of it is Cape Breton is going to be retooling. They're looking forward to the future. They're going to be competitive, but there's a lot of disappointment right now for Eagles supporters.
Yeah, 100%. You and I both know a few of them, right? There's a lot of question marks going into the off season. But no, you're right. I mean, they've got some great players in the pipeline. Romain L'Italien was a full time player as a 16-year-old. They've got Samuel Boyer, who tore up the U18 circuit in Quebec this year with with 3 2026 first round picks, and who knows, they're probably going to make bank on Thomas Lavoie at some point next season, right? It's they can easily turn the ship around, and you know you look at Rimouski's got the Memorial Cup here in a month and a bit. Well, it's going to be back here in 2028. And we all know the Center 200 is, getting some renovations, or they've already got some renovations. So I would be surprised if in a couple of years here we're talking about Cape Breton bid for that particular tournament, and at that point they're going to have the team to on paper to really make a strong case as being hosts.
Well, if the Memorial Cup's coming to Cape Breton in 2028, Mom's going to start making the cookies now, and we're going to have a lot of Mom's chocolate chip cookies ready to go around. Mario Cecchini has already declared them the best cookies in the league, and it's on footage, it's on tape. That would be very good, and I know there'll be a lot of Cape Breton hospitality to go around for a Memorial Cup in Sydney. Um, let's talk about the teams remaining now, Jeremy. Start off your Moncton Wildcats. Survived a bit of a scare, game 1 against Quebec, and then it was all business for Gard McDougall and the Cats.
Yeah, it was definitely a series that was a lot closer than people thought, and I think it's really paid dividends already into the second round against Baie-Comeau. It was a wake up call for the Wildcats. They going in against the eighth seed. It's you never know what to expect, and Quebec came at them really hard. And other than game two, you could make the argument that every game was a one goal game, and Moncton's depth just it was too much for Quebec, and just a crazy story in game four of that series where their goalie, the Quebec's goalie Deneau, was sick but still had to start because I believe their backup goalie was sick and couldn't play, and the puck drop was delayed 20 minutes while they waited for their backup goalie to arrive in the city, who just happened to get eliminated from U18. And it was at some point, I think, in the second period where this 16-year-old Patrick Deniger had to go in and play the rest of the game because Deneau just wasn't feeling it, and it was quite the story. But no, it was a scare. I'll admit it. It was a lot closer of a series than I thought it would be, and I think a lot of people thought. But like I said, it's if you want to flipped it and go right into game one against Baie-Comeau, I don't know if Baie-Comeau was tired, from that 6 game series against Cape Breton, which had you mentioned the 5 overtimes in game five. I don't know if they were tired from game one, but it was a total domination from Moncton. That game one was, superfan Brent DeBourne's birthday. It was Caleb Dinoyer's birthday, so the guys wanted to win for them, and it was they were just all over Baie-Comeau in game one, and game two was definitely a different story. It was a lot closer, but Moncton's got the kind of the advantage right now of they're rolling 4 lines, and Baie-Comeau is, I think their fourth line got maybe a shift or two in game one and game two. So it's I think Moncton's kind of taken advantage of their maybe not necessarily a tired Baie-Comeau team, but they're a little beaten up too. It's tough to play a series without Justin Poirier. It's tough to play a series without Alexis Bernier and Gilbert on the back end. I mean, those are 3 huge losses for Baie-Comeau, and so I think right now Moncton's more or less just taking advantage of a young Baie-Comeau back end, and but I think I've said it every time we talk. The series shifts to Baie-Comeau for 2, potentially 3, and the air horns are going to be. I think I hear them already. Actually, if you believe it, I made a joke that hope Gardner brings his Tylenol because he might need it. It's going to be that it's going to be that loud. You wouldn't know that the Jakarta are down 2-0 when the team step on the ice there Tuesday night.
It's a very loud atmosphere in Baie-Comeau. I had to walk into the path of an air horn when we were doing the MHL playoffs in Pictou in the pregame, and it reminded me of the old Rodney Dangerfield joke when he was trying to get a nap the week he was hosting SNL. Pearl Jam was rehearsing. He came out of his dressing room and said, "We get it. You're a band. All right, get over it." That's how I felt about the air horn. And the air, thank God they took the air horn away. But those air horns in Baie-Comeau, my goodness, they're incessant and do not stop. Um, Speaking of not stopping, in the first round, the Halifax Mooseheads have to be the story of the first round in the entire Canadian Hockey League,
Mm.
becoming the first 16 seed in league history to knock off a number one. It went 7, and the reason was possible. Jacob Steinman for one, but an overall belief and confidence from that Moosehead team that they could play with Drummondville. And we talked about how the East was a meat grinder. Well, the Mooseheads, they used their brain and said, "Why go through the East when we can take our shot at the West?" And they took
Yeah.
out the number one team. Luke Woodworth leading Drummondville into Scotiabank Center. Again, a kid from the South Shore as a 2-time captain. He wrapped up his career this year. Great story from Luke Woodworth. But it was the Halifax Mooseheads were the ones that spoiled that homecoming and the party. that was a team that believed, especially that Game 5 win over Drummondville was something else. It was just answer after answer, and especially with the amount of bodies they were missing, they're down almost an entire line. And I know, hey, we've got the rose-colored glasses on because we're talking about a dozen kids that didn't have any playoff experience before this year, now getting themselves into the second round when they if you were to start talking at the start of the playoffs, they'd have no business being in the second round.
Mhm.
And that's a credit to the coaching staff. It's a credit to the leadership group of the Mooseheads that they were able to go and pull off a massive upset against Drummondville. Drummondville, I think, has taken it all out of the Mooseheads, and we're seeing that against a very tough Rouyn-Noranda Huskies team. Huskies able to capitalize and really pepper the shots on the Mooseheads in game 1 and 2. We've got 3, 4, and 5, the potential 5 coming up on Eastlink Community TV this week. Looking forward to it. Really getting excited for that. We're going to be in the rink tomorrow. Talk with Cam Russell about the year. I'm going to get to have a sit down with Alex Carr as well, Lower Sackville kid that's captain for the Huskies. So looking forward to that. But should be a should be some fun hockey. Again, the Moosehead short staffed, but it's been a next man up mentality from them, and they've thrived. And this type of pressure and this type of playoff experience really jumpstarts that cycle for them. They're a team with no 19-year-olds as well at this
Yeah.
point. So they're returning the whole core except for the 320s. And
Mhm.
you know that Cam's going to be making some moves to see what else they can do with that team. It's exciting times with Moose Country moving forward. This is a team that they're going to be making moves for the next 2 years.
Yeah, 100%. You called it. I think they're probably the only team in the league without a 19-year-old on their roster, and that's going to give Cam Russell the freedom to do whatever he wants when it comes to 20-year-olds for next season, right? He can go and get a big name, and that's only going to help the team even more. But it's pretty evident that Jacob Simon, uh, Braden McPhee, Schultz, these guys just don't want their junior careers to end. And it showed that entire series. They were all over the ice. And I know they kind of got their backs against the wall, but what they say is you're not in trouble till you lose a game on home ice. And when it comes to this series, Halifax hasn't lost on home ice yet. And it's at the Scotiabank Center. You can flip the script and take advantage of a 2-3-2. Win two or three of these games, and we got ourselves a brand new one. So it's I don't think this one's over. Uh, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's as much as I'd love to see a Moncton and Halifax, Final Four matchup. That would be absolutely spectacular, given the trading relationship between the two organizations. In the past 10 months. So that would be something else. And I predicted Halifax would win the series, so I'm hoping they flip it around here. And that's what I'm looking forward to the most for these upcoming games here in Halifax.
Yeah, it's been fun to be following that team. It's been fun to follow the Wildcats. It's playoff hockey as we're into the second round of the Q playoffs, and a team that's in that second round is Chicoutimi and Ritchie Thibeau. Joining us after this break, and yeah, very excited to talk with Ritchie coming up.
So we've reached that point of the episode where I talk about Eastlink and our wonderful services of telecommunication. Well, you've heard me. If you're fans of the Around the Maritime podcast, you've definitely heard me talk about how we have unlimited mobile and a gig internet for $109 a month. Well, what if I told you that right now it's unlimited mobile and a gig internet for $99 a month? That's right, $99 a month. You can check out eastlink.ca. Go in and see the friendly reps at the store or call 1-888-345-1111 for more details on that. When you're talking to them, make sure you say, hey, you're hooking me up with my mobile. You're hooking me up with my internet. I need to make sure I've got the best seat in the house for local sports. What can you do for a TV package? I'm sure they'll come up with something. You say, I like the Q. I like watching the Quebec Maritime Junior Hockey League on Eastlink. I like watching the Maritime Hockey League. I like watching the high school coverage. Heck, you can even say, hey, I want to watch the old boy Mavs Gillis. I heard he once interviewed Blair the Bearcat Joseph, and I got to find that interview on demand. You wanna check that one out. So make sure you get that on there. You get the old Eastlink Community TV in with that package with that $99 a month for unlimited mobile and a gig internet, and the Wi-Fi again just works, as you can tell by the old ads we got. We got my buddy Shane waving. So you check that out. Give them a call. They'll hook you up. And again, if you're already hooked up with us, thanks. Rich Tibo, the assistant general manager of the Chicoutimi Saguenay, friend of the program. Rich, thanks for taking the time out of the schedule here in the playoffs. It's always fun postseason time. In tough against Rimouski. Love your thoughts on how the postseason's been going for Chicoutimi right now.
Hey, hi Mav. Hi Jeremy. It's great to be on with you guys. Yeah, the postseason away the first round against Bathurst, it was a tough series. We were able to move on. Now we're focused on Rimouski. We played a lot better in the last game, and we're looking forward to Game 3 at home ice tomorrow night.
Looking at, I know you and I, Richie, remember vividly last season and how it went against Chicoutimi. You pretty much got the same group as last season. What kind of experience, knowing that Chicoutimi, their peak is really next season. Just how valuable was the experience last season and this season going to help going into next season?
Yeah, there's nothing like playing in the playoffs and for young players to get that experience last year and again this year. It's excellent for their development. And for us, we're just looking at one game at a time and looking forward to Game 3 here and playing the best we can.
I like where Jeremy talks about how you're looking at a team that's building for, it's looking for next year compared to now. When you're going into a season in a front office, what's the differences between, I guess, when you have a year where you're going for it versus the start of the wheel? How do you approach that process?
Well, for us, we have the players we have, and we're looking. We don't use age as a crux in any way, and we just want everybody to play their ability and play the team game. And we know if we do that, even this year, we'll be successful. So it's all about us playing the right way, and if we can do that, we like our chances of winning Game 3. And yeah, those cycles in junior hockey and stuff, and we didn't make a lot of trades at Christmas like other teams did to improve themselves. But for us, we felt comfortable with our team for this year, and we're looking forward to Game 3.
Go through your role as assistant general manager. What are more or less the primary responsibilities? Maybe the differences between, you've had the role of general manager, and now you've got a role of assistant general manager. What's the differences between the two? And I guess what are your responsibilities as an assistant GM?
I'm pretty lucky here with Yannick, and Yannick involves me in everything. Whether it be trade discussions or looking at our future roster or involved in the draft and scouting. So really involved in all parts of the hockey side and provide my opinion on the team and players in the league. I'll be going to the under 18 in a few weeks, the World Championship, and getting ready for the Quebec League draft with our head scouts. Because I do scout the Maritimes, since I'm in the Maritimes anyway. But it's all the way from scouting to watching our players, evaluating our current players, and then looking forward to next year and how we structure a lineup for the future.
The whole landscape's changing right now. From this November when the NCAA said junior hockey kids are eligible to play, up to as soon as this weekend, where you have a kid from Sudbury, a Flames draft pick, opting to play their 19-year-old season in Michigan as opposed to staying with the Wolves. Where do you see this moving towards as we go into this off season, especially where you're looking at it really is the potential to be free agent frenzy.
Yeah, you know what? When that changed in November, our phone rang off the hook for a number of weeks, and we started making calls as well because then there was a lot of the system opened up to a lot of players coming our way, and players that we didn't have a chance at before, all of a sudden we had a chance at now. So we were able to add 3 players to our roster from BCHL, and now we've seen the Q had a showcase in Boston this weekend because we anticipate there's a lot of kids from that area that is in our area that want to play in the best league for development, which is our league. So it really is changing. I seen the note on Henry Muse, I believe, who was drafted by Calgary going to there. So that's unfortunate. But I'm sure there's a personal situation there that I'm not aware of. But, our goal is to keep our players in our league until they graduate, and then they have another opportunity to go to U.S. college. It's good for the players. More opportunities, more development, more opportunities for pro.
I guess when it comes to the NCAA changes, I mean the Saguenay's have quite the player in their system in Tynan Lawrence. Not sure if you can really go into detail, but have the organization have any communication with him and the family about maybe coming to play in Chicoutimi next season?
Yeah, there's nothing new on that. We drafted him. We've had discussions. Those are all discussions that'll take place after the season. But we're hopeful and looking forward, hopefully one day, for him to dress for our team for sure.
When you look at now the Americans coming in and it being an opportunity for kids to go to the States, where do you see, I guess partnerships or kind of collaborations? Is this something that you could see the major junior teams or just the league in general beginning to work in a coexistence type relationship with the NCAA? Is this where would you want to see it going as a hockey mind?
Well, I know already that we have relationships with some people in recruiting and in the NCAA, and through some contacts that I've had and stuff, and I've got some recruiters there for some large schools that are definitely interested in having their prospects play in our league. And for us, it's to provide them information with our 20-year-olds so they can have opportunities to convince those folks and recruit them. So yeah, we're definitely creating some relationships that we may not have had in the past, but it's a win-win for both sides because we can get some young players to develop, and they get to them when they're 20 or 21. And for us, it's getting their recruits and showing that we have a program to develop and prepare them for the NCAA or pro or whatever. So it's definitely something that we've created a scouting staff in the U.S. I have 2 scouts down there now that are working for us. We meet regularly, and it's a territory no different than Quebec and the Maritimes for us right now.
And Mavs mentioned you being a hockey mind. I'd have to agree with you. Agree with that. But prior to your time in the Q, with St. John and Moncton, now Chicoutimi, you were scouting in the NHL with the Flames, and I guess during your time scouting for Calgary, who was the best player you scouted, and what they made them so special?
Well, I mean, I scouted lots of players. Some of them didn't play in Calgary, but I remember a story from my first year. It was the year Sidney Crosby was drafted. So I kept going to watch him, and at one point my head scout said, "Hey, Richie, you don't need to keep watching him. We know who he is. He's going to be fine." So that was my first rookie year, I guess.
Yeah, everyone had 87 circled on their draft boards. They just waiting to see where that lottery system ended up that year because every team had a shot with him after the lockout.
Yeah, and I remember he played in Cape Breton one day, and Adam Party was on defense, who had just been drafted by the Flames. And I think Sid had 4 goals that day, and I think Adam Party was -4. So my report wasn't very good, but again, rookie mistake on that one.
One of the stories you told me few last season, I think it was, we were talking about Jacob Steinman, and you gave me the rundown of how he came into the league and how you were able to find him. I would love it if you were able to give that story here on the podcast, because it really is a story about making the most of an opportunity.
Yeah, I ended up going to the meltdown. We had some of our scouts there had put a team together of free agents um, that for them to view at and see who could be invited to our camp. So I decided to last minute I was decided to go and then I decided to go on the bench because a couple of them were on defense, so I wanted to go behind the bench, coach the D, and see what they were like during the game. And the couple of games, Steiny was in net. So I started noticing more and more. And then I asked our scouts, who's the goalie? Why is he not on my list to look at? Well, he's not going to come. So, we spent some time with him, spent some time with his family. And a couple of weeks later, we had him in Moncton shooting. We had him through a goalie session for an hour on Saturday morning and Sunday morning in June or July. I think it was late June, early July. And then after an hour on the ice, those 2 days, we signed him and said, hey, you're going to be playing for us this year if you want. And that's what we did. But it was like one of those things at the last minute, end up going to the meltdown and end up coaching and end up seeing him and end up bringing him in Moncton. And, and he wanted to be a pilot. And it worked out that Moncton's got a pilot school. So, everything kind of, his mom and dad were very favorable of that, and they knew the organization and stuff, so it all worked out. But it was really just a lucky bounce for us.
I love that. I do love that he has his pilot's license as well. That is also something that needs to be, that doesn't get discussed enough with Jacob Steinman.
He's a smart man. He's a smart player, so.
Yeah. We had Andrew Lord on the show a couple of weeks ago, and we brought up I think it was off air. I'm not sure if we were on the show or not, but we we made the joke about Jacob Steinman having his pilot license, and Andrew Lord had no idea. So I'm not sure if he keeps it a secret or not, but I'm sure from that moment on it was definitely talked about in their conversations. I even asked him if he could maybe get Jacob to fly the plane to Rwanda for those first two games. I don't know if they got to that point or not.
You never have enough pilots on a plane, so.
Oh, that's right. But it's everyone needs to get their start in hockey somewhere, and
yeah.
that includes you, right?
Yep.
Even before your time in NHL and in the Q, your first hockey job was, believe it or not, a Zamboni driver.
It was, actually.
Why don't you tell us about that story?
Yeah, I always joke about that in our local community back in Cape Breton, which is in Ilbadam. Starting in grade 9, I believe, I started driving the Zamboni. And back then it was a tractor with the bucket on the back and the big tires with the studded tires on them. So I did that for 4 or 5 years, all through high school and then some university. It was always tough, though, when you did the ice for the figure skaters because it had to be perfect. And with those studded tires, if you got caught in the corner, the ice wasn't perfect anymore. So a couple of times I got stuck there and kind of dug down to the cement, but got through it all. It was fun. When I look back, it was fun memories being around the rink all the time. So, yeah, that was my first hockey job.
I love those old school the tractor Zambonis. I don't think they're very rare in existence right now, and kids wouldn't believe to see the old farm tractor pulling the what looks like a piano behind you.
Exactly. And the worst thing, the scariest thing was if you were down the ice and there was a piece you missed with a white section or something. That was the worst. You had to go around again. And so you always had to plan your route and make sure you stay with your regular route. It's more complicated than it seems.
How long did it take you to perfect driving around the Zamboni? And what was that like? Your first couple laps to get the pattern down.
It was tough because with the tractor, it would slide in the corners and you'd fishtail. So you had to practice the fishtail so that you covered. And if you didn't fishtail enough, then you wouldn't cover it all. So you had to go back. So it's everybody had their own way of doing it. For me, I had to fishtail a certain amount so that at least I get water on it and cover it in wet water, so it didn't look like I missed it. But it took a little while, and after 5 years, I don't know if I perfected it or not.
Getting back to, I guess, just the scouting side of things. I mean, you read scouting reports, and it's speed, it's skill, it's physicality, it's character, worth ethic. Yeah, trying to get it out there.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go on, but how often are you watching for body language? And I guess where would you rank that these days as a characteristic when it comes to determining a prospect?
Well, for me, character is number one. Body language is part of it. I can be turned off pretty quick by body language of a player. We want good people that are also good hockey players. So for me, it's the number one is character, because without it, all the skill in the world sometimes doesn't work out if you don't have the character. So it's critical. I'd take a high character with average skill if I had to.
What's the best advice you give to parents that are going through this process and seeing their kids being scouted?
Well, first of all, is be a parent. Let other people take care of all the other stuff, but be a parent, be the taxi driver, be support. That's number one, and then just make sure you get all the information that you need that's available to make the right decision for you and your child. But it's going to happen one way or the other, so there's no use stressing over it. And with all kinds of anxiety and stuff, it's really just be a parent, and like any other situation, just get all the information, make the right decision when you have it.
Being growing up as being in the rinks as not only a scout but also as a goalie dad, was it what's more stressful, being a general manager of a Q team or being a goalie dad?
Definitely the general manager side. The goalie dad is, I got as nervous as my kid got nervous, and Brandon, kind of shrugged it off, the bad moments and stuff. So, my biggest issue I had was trying to make the saves with my legs. So my legs got sore as I make the saves in the stands, as if trying to get my legs to move to make the save, but it was really his legs on the ice. So that's as nervous as I got about it, because at the end of the day, it's a game. And we as parents need to look at it that way. And the more we support them and make it a game, the better they'll be. That's the way I see it. So for me, it was always, the drive home was not about good or bad performance. It was about, did you have fun, and discussion about the things that he liked, the things he wanted to improve on. But it wasn't me asking. We didn't talk hockey unless he wanted to. And but I can understand being a goalie dad or a goalie mom. My wife at the time was a lot more stressed than I was.
In the GM role, and again, the front office role, of course, we're going to be covering the round one of the draft on June 6th on Eastlink. We've covered it a couple of years now. How much goes in to the weekend of the draft, and what is it like for those 15 minutes around the table before your first pick gets announced?
Yeah. Well, for us, there's a lot of work all year. Like tonight, we have a call at 8 o'clock tonight with our staff to go through our list and what we've seen over the last 2 weeks. We had the showcase in the U.S. on the weekend. We had 3 people there. Our head scout was there. We had playoffs in Quebec going on. The telescope is coming up. So there's all kinds of games being seen. There's all kinds of information being shared at this time, and a lot of research being done. And then eventually we got to get down to what our list really is. And that's working with Yannick to finalize the needs of the team and where we're going to draft. We're drafting at this point in the latest ninth overall. So we have a good pick. And, when you get to last year when we got to Moncton, the day before, it's finalizing your list, doing a few interviews. And, going through the first round to me, that's the exhilaration of, it's like Christmas morning. because you're watching what's happening as a GM. You're who's pick one, who's pick two, and see how close you were in your assessments, and then who might be available at your pick. And you start having different strategies of what you do if so and so is there, and if he's not there, what would you do? So you're really building options on the fly, all of them that you've run through your mind for probably a month or two beforehand. But you're settling in on those options to see what you're going to do at your pick. Whether you pick, you trade it, multiple options, and you're getting calls on it. You're getting texts nowadays with offers and different things like that. So there's a lot of information going around for decisions to be made.
I remember during your time in Moncton, you talked about having a couple late nights as GM. Are you able to catch up on sleep now with your in a different role with Chicoutimi?
Yeah, for sure. For me, the draft is the night before the draft on the Friday or Thursday night. It's what it's all about. So I get some sleep in a couple of days, kind of thing. I always like to make sure I get things in order the night before, whatever time it takes, and then I like to be at the draft table early. I remember in the NHL, some people that would always be there early. It was their kind of their ritual, and you're kind of there in your own bubble, and getting your thoughts together and visiting people, talking to people about different things. So I always like to get on the draft floor early, so we can get. It's preparing for a game. To me, it's all about preparing for a game. It's no different, and you get all the information, you prepare, and you get ready to execute when the bell goes.
What's your favorite memory from the day one of the draft?
Oh, I've got a few probably, but drafting Jake Peltier is one of them. Uh, Caleb Dinway, some of the trades we were able to pull off. I remember some trades we weren't able to pull off. I remember in St. John once, the Joe Valeno trade, the Joe Valeno draft, that Joe wasn't available till the day before the draft. So that was like, whoa, everything's changed here now. And at the NHL level, I guess my favorite thing was the first time I was able to go on stage to draft a player. And Jay Feaster asked me to go on stage in the first round. So that was kind of something I'll never forget.
Well, I got to say, my favorite part about this interview is your background there, Richie. We're a big fan of that elk or deer, whatever it is there.
Yeah.
If there's anything I remember this interview by, it's going to be that.
My favorite line from Rounders, that's a hell of an elk.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, well, it's not mine, but it's a great background. That's why I chose it. I thought it'd be a good centerpiece behind me. Take the attention off of me.
Well, I know you're big game hunting against Rimouski, that's for sure. That's
Yes.
that is this is again for Chicoutimi we've watched I've enjoyed we got to cover them last year in the playoffs and enjoyed watching Maxime Massé and the kid that I've really liked is Wang on defense. What are some of the underrated abilities and some of the underrated traits of the kids on your team that you think don't get enough attention?
You know what? Alex is a great hockey player, but he's a smart individual. I had him at the under 17, and he just got better and better at the under 17, and he was a great player. And in game two here, he was excellent. He was one of our best players all game, and you see him, he scored with 33 seconds left. So for me, he's only 17, so he's a bit underrated. But I can only imagine him at 18 and 19. He's and we've got a lot of guys like that. We've got a lot of guys in that age group that should be drafted, a couple of years ago.
I have to admit, the going back to that draft, where was it? Sherbrooke?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I had I had my own little inner draft day moment where I had a Alex Wong or no matter what piece of paper in my pocket, but I got to say I'm quite happy with the Dinway pick.
Yeah, I know you were pretty happy with that, and he ended up going. I think we had number 6. He ended up going 5, I believe, to Chicoutimi. Yannick tells me all the time. He says, "Why'd you win the lottery? You could have Dinwiddie here." And by
Awesome.
the way, you enjoyed the playoffs last year a lot more than I did there.
Yeah. Yeah, those we had those were fun playoffs, I know, but that's we talked about in our preamble about the importance of getting that type of playoff experience as a young core. That's what happened with Chicoutimi last year, and that's kind of what we saw with the Mooseheads this year. How has that, I guess, paid dividends for this team moving forward?
Yeah, for me, it's you got a young team. You always want to make the playoffs. For me, the rebuilding and finishing last or second last is not the way that I like to do it. I want to make sure that you get in the playoffs because that's where your young players get to grow. Uh, you can't just get to the playoffs when you want to win it all. To me, that's you need the experience. You need to learn how to win. You learn how to lose a little bit too, but you need to learn how to win. And and it's so important to get in the playoffs because there's really nothing like it. You talk about the regular season stuff, but playoff hockey and the atmosphere, the building will be full tomorrow night. It'll be loud. It was loud in Rimouski. It's nothing like the season. I need to have earplugs in Rimouski the other night when I was there. Otherwise, I couldn't hear anything. So it's just totally different in the playoffs.
Well, Richie, I'm good. Jeremy, you good, my friend?
All good on my end.
Oh, Richie, all good here. Great catching up as always. Best of luck against the Oceanic and moving forward. And we'll be seeing you down the road for sure.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Richard.
So we've talked about Eastlink a couple times on the Around the Maritime podcast, and right now it's a little something different. We just want to take a second to focus on Eastlink Community TV. As you see, we're proudly part of your community. All the stories, all the teams, all the sports, everything we cover, it's to make sure we bring the passion over for you. Hey, there's Oscar Plandowski. Good to see Oscar. I saw him last week. Actually, he's doing very well at UMB. But we're a lot more than just sports. We want to make sure that we amplify maritime voices and ensure that good news stories from around the Maritimes get told on either Eastlink Magazine or through the plethora of shows we have on Eastlink Community TV, and we can do it not to take the PBS slogan. I don't know if they trademarked it. Maybe they might have, but because of viewers like you. So um, when you're looking for your service, a lot of the programming that we're able to do is because of you and it's for you. So just want to take a second to thank you and hope that if you've enjoyed the content here on the Around the Maritimes and you're on the fence, that maybe you come over and join us here on Eastlink. It's again 1-888-345-1111, eastlink.ca. Or again, talk to the good folks at our retail stores about getting hooked up with some great telecommunications, internet, mobile. We also do security, and of course, we got TV.
God.
Bring the dog. There
There
he
he is.
is. There he is. Now you might have heard some barking in the background. Jeremy, what's your friend's name?
This is Teddy.
Teddy. Teddy has made an appearance on the Around the Maritimes podcast. Oh my goodness gracious. We talk about sea dogs, but now we're talking about this old salty dog. How old's Teddy?
Teddy is a year and a half.
Year and a half. That dog is huge. It's got to be as big as it gets, eh?
This is full grown.
Jeremy. And you got one other dog too, eh?
Yeah, other one didn't want to come in. The other one's name's Iggy, named after Jerome
Iggy.
McGinley, of course. But
Oh yes, there's Teddy.
yeah, there's
Teddy's in
Teddy,
there.
the teddy bear.
In case you're wondering who's in the background, trying to get their words in. Great to have Richie in there as well, man. Great to chat. Again, a great hockey mind and a guy who's been around the leagues for quite some time.
Yeah, it's our paths crossed. When he was a scout with Calgary, and we've many years ago, and we've kind of stayed in touch, and he's kind of helped me with with the scouting world when I want to write reports, and he's always a good person to go to if you want something looked over when it comes to watching a player. Always such a great hockey mind, really smart. His time in Moncton was, there's the Pelche, Dinoyer. I mean, you can name it. And he brought a lot of good players into Moncton, and and I don't think the team would be where they are right now if it wasn't for him. It's Julius Sump was a free agent because of thanks to Ritchie Thibeau. There was a lot of there's a lot of Ritchie on this team, and it's really paying off right now.
Well, it's great to have him on Around the Maritimes, and great to have Teddy as well. Great to talk hockey. And I
Teddy's
believe the
not a
next
fan. Here he is.
Teddy's in there. I believe the next time we'll be chatting will be probably conference, if not going into the finals. So
Yeah, you're right. It's because the next time we have a show will be the last week of April. So we're in the semifinals at that point, and you never know, Mavs. By that time, we might even have a new prime minister.
yeah, we very well could. I mean, who knows? Who knows what's happening there? But you know me. We keep it right to hockey, my friend. We keep it
That's
right to
right.
hockey, and
We keep the politics out and we stick to sports.
we stick to the sports, and that's the best way to do it, man. I'm telling you. Uh, as a guy who's in broadcasting, I feel very fortunate that I'm doing sports and not news, politics, crime. I could do weather. I could do weather be fun. Entertainment would be all right. But the problem is, if you do entertainment and something happens, they hand you a camera, then they say, go cover that. And then it's just me outside somewhere, just terrified. Just holding the microphone. This is not hockey. This is not good. There's so much blood. Back to you. Well, thanks again. That was Mavs Gillis from the scene, as he is obviously terrified. We apologize for sending that idiot out to cover something of significance. I'll stick to my sports. Thank you very much. I get to put my mic into the into to hear from kids that are saying the job's not done yet when it comes to playoff hockey, and our job's not done yet either. We're gonna have even more with Around the Maritimes moving forward. Jeremy, thanks again, my friend, as
Thank
always.
you.
And thanks again to Richie, and thanks again for watching us here on Around the Maritimes, the English podcast of the Quebec Maritime Junior Hockey League.